the more you make her feel secure and the more you hold her without sex in an affectionate way, the more sexual she becomes. In other words, guys, you have to kind of go around the mountain a different way, because it's not as though she can't be sexual, but with most of us, we're so suave and debonair, we just walk up and say, "Want to have sex?" That's the whole move right there. Want to have sex? I want to have sex now. Turn on now. And she doesn't. She's much more complicated than that. So what happens is, as you make her feel secure and as you hold her, she becomes sexual in that environment. Now, so here's what affection means to a woman, because men and women are different. By the way, men have sex because, first of all, it feels good and it's an event. But women have sex to connect emotionally to their husbands. That's what affection means to a woman. Number one is value. I'm talking about soft affection. And you walk up to your wife and you just hold her, you just put your arm around her and you hold her hand, and you do it often. It communicates to her, I'm valuable. I'm valuable to him. Not just because of sex, because sexual affection means you just like me because of sex. But affection means you like me. Security makes her feel very secure that you're there. And emotional connection. Even though you're standing there just thinking, how long do I have to do this? She's feeling like we're connected. He cares about me. It's very, very important to her. Well, when Karen and I got married, I had two brothers growing up, and I was the youngest of three boys. I have two older brothers, Damien and Lucifer. And they tormented me. I was abused as a child. You can tell, can't you? But we fought every day. We just fought my entire life growing up was just a survival, and we fist fought every day. So, and my mother and dad are wonderful people, but they weren't particularly affectionate kind of people, and so I grew up without having physical affection of that type. And so when I met Karen, very attracted to Karen, just thought she was great. I didn't know how to be affectionate without being sexual, but when we were dating, I didn't know how to be affectionate at all without being rough. And this is a true story now, because when we started dating, I would hold her hand, but I'd pinch on it. And I thought it was great. I like that a lot. But Karen I would hold her hand and she would, I don't like that. That hurts. Don't do that. I'd say, well, you'll get used to it. I'm in it. I just thought, she hasn't had the great childhood I've had, and she needs to toughen up. And I really did. So I'd hold her hand and she never liked it. She'd say, stop, I don't like that. And this is also true. We'd be in the car and I'd put my arm around her, and I just thought the picture of romance is a headlock. I give her a little noogie. I loved it. It was the warmest, cuddliest feeling to me. I just loved put my arm around her and just kind of put her head next to mine. Okay. Right. And she hated that. And stop it. I don't like that. And I say, no, you'll get used to it. I just kept trying to talk her into it. And so we would stand there. One time she was crying. We were having a fight when we were dating, and we were on her porch. And we were up there, and I was so nervous. I was just stupid. I was so nervous. And I remember standing there, and she was crying. And we'd had this fight. She was crying. And in the middle of her crying, she says this to me. She said, can't you just hold me? And I stood there on the other side of the porch, and I said, stop crying. So she went, okay. I said, well, now you don't need it. And that was terrible. I told you it was terrible. It made me so nervous to hold her like that, and I just didn't know how to. So we got married anyway. She married me anyway, and I was always rough or sexual when we were married. I didn't know how to do it. And it sounds crazy to some people. It made me nervous, and I just didn't know how. And so we got married, and she kept telling me, I just want you to hold me. And I don't want you to don't be rough with me, because I was always, kind of, pinching around on her and things like that. And she wouldn't let me hold her hand anymore. And so one time when our marriage changed, I just prayed. The Bible, I read the Bible, and it says the Holy Spirit will lead you into all truth. So one day I was praying, and I said, Holy Spirit, I pray that you'd help me be affectionate with Karen, because I really wanted to meet her needs. And I was sitting there one day, I think the day I prayed that prayer, and Karen was folding clothes over on the couch. And we were, very young, and she was sitting over there, and I remember looking at her across the room, and the Holy Spirit spoke to my heart, and He said, okay, walk across the room and put your arm around her and just hold her, but nothing else, nothing else. And I sat there, and I looked at her, and I loved Karen. I thought she was so attractive. I remember looking at her across the room thinking, oh gosh, I don't know that I can do that. And I just sat there, and I just thought, Lord, I'm going to need your help on this. This is a big one. And maybe it sounds so stupid, but I really felt that way. And so I got up finally, and I walked across the room. Now remember, I had never been affectionate with Karen. We'd been sexual, but I'd never been soft and affectionate with her. So I start walking across the room toward her, and so she's sitting there like, oh brother, here you go, pervert alert, pervert incoming. So, oh my gosh, she just looked at me like, oh God. And so I went over and I sat down next to her, and I sat there. And I was about to throw up. I thought I was going to. And I, put my arm around like this, and then finally I kind of put my arm up around her like that. She's folding clothes there, and she's just kind of looking at me like, oh man, what's coming now? But I just sat there, and I just patted her on the shoulder and just sat there, and for a while, seemed like an eternity. And so I finished, and I took my arm off, and I wasn't sexual, and I wasn't rough. And so she said, what are you doing? And I said, just trying to be affectionate. And she said, well, I like that. And I thought, well, now I've spoiled her. And she's going to want it all the time. So next few days, we were driving somewhere, and we got in the car, and I said, well, let me hold your hand. And she said, no, I'm not going to let you hold my hand. And I said, let me hold your hand. And she said, it just healed up. I said, let me hold your hand. So I remember the first time I held her hand and I didn't pinch it. And I just thought, this is so great, that I'm doing this. And I began to be affectionate. I began to be able to walk up to her and just hold her. And today I'm a very affectionate person. I just am. I love it. It's easy for me. Karen changed. Karen, her nature changed. The more soft and non-sexual men are, the more sexual women become. When men are having sex, men like sexual touching, but women like non-sexual touching. And it can't be obviously all non-sexual, but women like non-sexual touching and affection. So let me say this. You just don't see men standing around in groups saying, Bob, would you hold me? Come here. Come here, Bob. Unless they're strange. Strange men, soap opera men, but we don't need that stuff. We just don't need it. We don't. We need sex, but we don't need all that stuff. She needs it. Now listen, I didn't say she likes it. I'm saying she needs it. It's as important to her as your need for sex.
Thank you for joining.